To get started, we are in the book of Proverbs. We have, for the most part, concluded our introduction. I want to start tonight by remembering just a few of the ideas that are going to stand prominent in the book of Proverbs. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but this would be a good sampling of major themes to be found throughout the book of Proverbs. In any given chapter, wisdom is going to be relevant, whether the word is used or not. Justice, that which is right, true, and fair. Integrity, a level of honesty. Activity, not only honesty in what I'm doing, but am I actually doing? There's a lot said in the book of Proverbs about the sluggard and the slothful. The Proverbs writer would have a field day if he looked at the modern U.S. Finance is going to be a part of it. In fact, if we would heed the biblical examples regarding finance, if only in Proverbs and the New Testament idea, it would rule out some of the handout mindset and dependency mentality that can so often characterize some more recent generations. And by more recent generations, I mean since about 1940. Leadership, stewardship, relationships. All of these are key themes in the book of Proverbs. And now, whoever is up there operating, it looks like we're not plugged in with this particular clicker. Well, there may be no one up there operating. Proverbs 13:20 rather. Let's go there. Proverbs 13:20. He that walketh with wise men shall be what? Wise. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise. There's a sense in which wisdom is indeed contagious. I don't think the receiver for this clicker is plugged in. Someone was charging the other one. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Is there a place to be cautious of the company we keep? What's the theme or general idea that we tend to use when we're talking about younger folks on this situation? We tell them to be careful about what? About their company, about their friends, their associations, because of the danger of peer pressure. Why do we stop talking about peer pressure when they turn 18, 19 years old? Anybody ever experienced peer pressure after the age of 25? Yes. After the age of 35? Yes. After the age of 45? I know we're narrowing it down where less and less are able to answer. After the age of 55, 65? There's peer pressure at every age. I didn't want to single folks out. I've walked with wise men before. I know when to stop. No. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise. That's true at every age, at any given place in life. Here we go. I think we may. Well, this buzzed. All right. There we are. That is true at any given age or stage of life. You know, we need to give some folks an opportunity to walk with the wise. What happens when we isolate? What happens when we take all of the teens and we just keep the teens together as a group? We take all of the young adults and we just keep the young adults together as a group. And there's no outward effort at intermingling and intergenerational relationships. Then the wisest cohorts the teens have are going to be their peers. And wisdom dries up. I submit to you, wisdom got dried up when the older folks said, let's separate by age. Who should take the first step at making things right when there's a problem between parent and child? Who took the first steps at making things right when there was disparity between man and God? God. The older, or in his case, the timeless, the wiser, the one with more experience ought to be the one bridging the gap, forging the path, mending the wounds, healing the relationship, nurturing the bonds. And when we create situations to where we isolate certain groups to where the wisest influence they're going to get is going to be their own peers, we've all messed up. That's not to say there's not a place for a teen class and a young adult gathering. Please don't misunderstand. But hey, folks, if the only time I'm going to be around other members of the church is when I'm going to be around the people that are my own age, or if I think I need a ladies' class because I'm a lady, but I'm not going to be a part of other efforts because I want to be around my peers and the people that reflect me, or I'm only going to be around the men because I'm a male, I'm only going to be around the older folks because I'm older. The necessity of intergenerational relationships perhaps is most vividly demonstrated in the breakdown that occurs in the book of Judges. There arose a generation that knew not God. Where does wisdom begin? Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Wisdom begins with the fear of the Lord, a knowledge of God. When there arises a generation that knows not God, we've got to be careful about just assuming that it's all their fault. Are we in a generation in America where there is a vast vacuum of respect for even the concept of God? And lo and behold, it just happened overnight, right? I mean, just all at once. Here we are chugging along just throughout the 40s and 50s and 60s. Everyone's wholesome. Everyone is practicing temperance and behaving in ways that are virtuous. Here we come to the 70s and the marriages continue to be strong and upheld and respected, right? Then we get to the 80s and, the word divorce is just taboo. Hopefully the sarcasm is obvious. When we lament the nature of society today, it's simply the next step in the course that society took yesterday. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise. If we're going to influence tomorrow, then it's going to involve accepting wisdom today and instilling wisdom today. Accepting it from those who have the wisdom that I don't, and instilling it to those that lack the wisdom that I might have. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise. This might be the scariest thing I'll say tonight. There are times when you're the wisest person in the room. It's just the case. It happened to me one time. There's nobody else around, but I was the wisest person in the room. There are times when you are going to be the one who has to utilize wisdom in spite of those around you. Will we be the ones helping others get wiser? Companion of fools shall be destroyed. We need to be careful with this idea of peer pressure and this assumption that at least in practicality and pragmatics, that peer pressure ends once we reach adulthood. That's fallacy. There's a reason why so many people act the way they do, talk the way they do, dress the way they do, vote the way they do, because a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Company's contagious. Paul would say, 1 Corinthians 15, be not deceived, evil companionships corrupt good manners. Yes, there is a manner in which our companionships impact our wisdom, and it's also the fact that our companionships will impact our morals. And by the way, morals and wisdom are very closely connected. Wisdom is contagious. The more time we spend with those that exercise wisdom, the more we see those older than us facing scenarios we've not had to face, or describing things that they've already faced that we've not yet faced, or that we faced it once and boy, we knew we messed that one up. The more time we spend with those that possess wisdom that we lack, the better chance we have of learning some things the easy way instead of the hard way. Are we paying attention? The folks that are my age, are we looking at the challenges that the people 20, 30, 40 years older than us are facing? And are we paying attention? Maybe challenges regarding their children or their grandchildren, maybe challenges regarding their health or their financial situations, maybe challenges regarding their own cognitive ability. Are we paying attention? Those that are maybe 20 or 30 years younger, are you paying attention? He that walketh with wise men shall be wise. What's in your file? What are we filing away and remembering? What are we truly learning and saving? Anyone ever had a filing cabinet that you've kept it for years? And you go and you look through that filing cabinet after a period of time, and you ever find things that you forgot even existed? And then you find some things you wonder why you even kept it. What are we filing away in our minds? Because it is the case that there are times that we open the filing cabinet of our minds, and we will be reminded of things that are relevant to today that we forgot we even knew yesterday. Thy word have I hidden in mine heart that I might not sin against thee, Psalm 119:11. How about wisdom? Are we hiding that in our hearts? The best way to do it is to spend time around those who practice it. So, that idea being conveyed, we're going to go ahead and start tonight looking at a verse-by-verse study. Well, tonight we'll start with chapter 1, and we're going to call it Be All Ears. For those that were aware of events back in the late 80s and early 90s, I would have loved to have used Ross Perot's ears for this, but I couldn't find a high resolution enough image. All ears, remember that statement he made? And those of you who don't know what Ross Perot looks like, just imagine Dumbo, but with a Texas face. Be all ears. Proverbs 1 is all about hearing and learning. The proverb of Solomon, the son of David, the king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to receive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity. It's all about learning. Knowing, understanding, learning. And once we have learned enough to know and understand, then we're able to give instruction, to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. You can't teach what you don't know. Now, there is a sense in which there are certain things that we can teach from the negative perspective. For instance, the book of Proverbs will convey the idea that the prudent will see the stripes on the back of fools and learn from it. In other words, there are times that we learn from other people's mistakes or other people's punishments. There are times when we might teach others because of the consequences we face. Hopefully we get to the point that we're teaching others based on the lessons we've learned. It's all about listening and learning. Now, we have looked in depth at Proverbs 1:1-6 in previous classes as we worked our way through the introduction, so we're not going to dwell extensively on this passage right now, but we do want to remember that the idea of know is to have the facts, the knowledge. The idea of wisdom is the proper application of knowledge. When the Proverbs writer speaks of understanding, he's talking about the idea of seeing things from other people's point of view. But a person cannot truly exercise wisdom nor prudence without trying to see things from the point of view of others. To know wisdom, understanding, to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. Proverbs 1:5, a wise man will hear and increase learning. If you remember nothing else from the book of Proverbs, nothing else, remember Proverbs 1:5-7. A wise man will hear and will increase learning. And a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. The wise are wise enough to realize they don't know everything. There are too many know-it-alls. There are too many know-it-alls in pulpits. There are too many know-it-alls in pews. There are too many know-it-alls that call themselves parents. There are too many know-it-alls that call themselves sons and daughters. There are too many know-it-alls that assume roles of leadership, yet they lack the very principles, perspectives, and attributes that enable them truly to lead. The book of Proverbs condemns the know-it-all. A wise man will hear and will increase learning. A man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. To understand a proverb, the interpretation, the words of the wise, their dark sayings. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. There is the Proverbs term for the fool, or for the know-it-all. He's a fool. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Fools refuse to learn. You ever known anyone that refused to learn? Just wouldn't listen? How close were you to that person? How well did you know that individual? Was it the one that looks at you in the mirror? Have you ever been the one that you didn't claim to know at all? You just knew all you needed to know in this particular area and didn't want to listen to anyone on that. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. We are always to be learning. Now, we need to draw a line of distinction between those that are ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth as described in 1 Timothy 6. 2 Timothy 3, rather. Well, we don't want to be those that are ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth, but we do want to be the people that are always learning. Not because we're not able to come to the knowledge of the truth, but because we're always honing our understanding. We're always learning how to be more like our Lord. Learn to learn learning. Is it easy to learn? Anyone ever had a time when you struggled with learning? Sometimes the pendulum just swings way too far. For instance, there's been a time in our country where if people wouldn't learn, then they were labeled as handicapped in some way, and the problem was theirs. At the same time, we may well be looking at a point to where if people refuse to learn, then it's everyone else's responsibility to accommodate. There's a middle ground. Some people may indeed have learning challenges. Some people may just be challenges. and that by choice. For us as Christians, we are always in the role of teacher. Sometimes we're teaching from the role of parent. Sometimes we're just teaching from the role of a Christian endeavoring to share the gospel with those around us. It's important to pay attention to those that we're endeavoring to teach so that we will understand that there are some folks that learn differently. But it's also important to pay attention to the way that we learn so that we will be better suited to learn. Learn to learn learning. That's a pretty good description of Proverbs 1 through 6. Now, frequently throughout the book of Proverbs, the author is going to say, my son. My son, my son. He takes the position of teacher and he speaks to one who is his protege, his son in learning. And quite possibly there's a sense in which this is to a biological son. Isn't it interesting that he gives a whole lot of parenting advice to the son? For instance, Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he'll not depart from it. We're not jumping away needlessly from Proverbs 1 through 6. We're hitting on an idea that's very much relevant to it. Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way that he should go, pertains to the way that the child is bent. Train up or teach a child in the way that that child will learn and the way the child is bent. There are some children that have interest in some areas more than others. The father who is an architect that insists that his son become an architect, or the engineer that insists that his daughter become an engineer, the doctor that insists on the child entering the medical field, or the preacher that just assumes that that son has to be a preacher. Train up a child in the way that he is bent, not the way dad's bent, or not in the way mom's bent. It's incumbent on the one in the role of higher wisdom to utilize that wisdom in leading others. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. We can't expect them to exercise wisdom in areas. So there is a responsibility upon the parent to train up children in the way that they are prone to learn, which requires us as parents to pay attention to them and to try to learn and adapt to their learning behaviors. How many people have more than one child? And they're all identical, right? They all learned exactly the same way, behaved exactly the same way, reacted to challenges exactly the same way. I just glanced over at the Browns. There's a slight smirk on their faces. There's a responsibility on the parent to know each child because each one is different. And not only to know how that child learns, but to help that child learn how that child learns. So as that child matures into adulthood, we don't have a person who has no center, no heart, no lab or labab, who doesn't know who he is. But we have someone who's learned how he learns, knows who he is, knows how he learns, and is better equipped to learn despite environments that might not be as conducive to his learning as to that of some others. When we'll heed what Proverbs has to say about learning and about instilling the practices of learning in our children, we'll equip them to be able to face life instead of expecting life to accommodate them. Proverbs 1 through 6, learn to learn learning. And yes, we have to learn how to learn. Proverbs 1 through 7, learn to fear the Lord. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. It starts with the fear of the Lord. Isn't it fascinating that Proverbs 1, 7 through 9 did not start with, my son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. There'll be an ornament of grace to thy head, chain shall they be about the neck. Oh, and the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It didn't start with, listen to us, boy. Oh, and fear the Lord. Hey, parents. You see where we're going here. Have we ever gotten it backwards? Have we ever put the focus on the child's relationship with us as primary and priority, and the child's relationship with God as secondary and peripheral? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Son, hear the words of your father. Don't forsake the law of your mother. Listen to your parents. Listen to this older generation. Listen to this generation that's been there, done that. They have the t-shirt, the scars. And here's some stitches still there. Look at that. Hear the instruction of thy father, the teaching. Forsake not the law, the standards and boundaries of thy mother. Because if you'll accept these ideas, it's going to be like jewelry. Chains about thy neck, an ornament of grace about thy head. You'll be benefited. Learn to learn learning. Learn to fear the Lord. Proverbs 1, 8 and 9 come on the heels of Proverbs 1, 7. True or false? It's better for a child to obey mom and dad than to obey God. There are all kinds of folks in the world that have listened to the instruction of fathers and not forsaken the laws of their mothers. But the fathers and the mothers did not fear the Lord. And what's that done for the children in their path and walk? Remember where this starts. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. If we're convinced that their relationship with us is more important than their relationship with God, or if we act like our relationship with them is more important than our relationship with God or theirs, then we have abandoned wisdom. Sunday morning, driving over here to the campus, we had slept at the house. We're still doing some renovating. Pray for us. But we slept at the house Saturday night, driving over Sunday morning, coming over about 7 a.m. or so. Came to Forest Hill Irene Road. And I couldn't even get off of 385 on the Forest Hill Irene. Sunday morning, 7 a.m. What would you expect traffic to be like? Nobody, right? Empty. Micro Soccer Complex had dozens and dozens of vehicles lined up, exiting, backed up all the way onto 385, because on Sunday morning they gathered to watch the idol. And the idol is not the soccer ball being kicked. For those of who are foreign, that's European football. The idol is not the ball being kicked, but the boys and girls running around on the field. When we demonstrate to them that our relationship with them is more important than our relationship with God or theirs, we've abandoned wisdom. Proverbs 1 sets the stage for everything else that's going to be discussed. Learn to learn learning. Learn to fear the Lord. We've already done an investigation of the different references, the idea of the fear of the Lord and the way that develops out the book of Proverbs. We're not going to revisit that. But we do want to hit on the way this idea connects with the verses that immediately follow. The wise man stresses his relationship with God even before he stresses his relationship with mother and father. Which, by the way, Jesus did the same thing, Luke 14:26. If any man come after me and hate not father, mother, brother, sister, wife, children, his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. takes learning in order to learn learning. We've got to be willing to learn. Have to learn to fear the Lord. Isn't it interesting how that doesn't just come naturally? Remember, foolishness is bound in the heart of the child. Well, we tend to think selfishly instead of selflessly. We tend to think in terms of know-it-all instead of learn some more. Learn to learn learning. Learn to fear the Lord. Proverbs 1, beginning in verse 10. We're going to call this learn to earn a living. There is a moral aspect being discussed here, absolutely. And that moral aspect pertains to honesty, pertains to integrity. It also pertains to activity. And yes, the idea of greed. Proverbs 1, beginning in verse 10. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, let us lie wait for blood. Let's lurk privily for the innocent without cause. We'll find all precious substance. We'll fill our houses with spoil. Here's the bait. Hey, let's lay wait for blood. We've got an easy way to make money. We'll just take it from somebody else. We'll lurk privily for the innocent without cause. They've not done us any wrong. But we're going to attack them. We're going to overcome them. Let's swallow them up alive as the grave, whole as those that go down to the pit. This is a murderous mindset. How many people have ever been tempted to become a highwayman? To lay wait by the side of the road and try to hijack or to carjack, or chances are that idea is so far removed from your way of thinking that it's not likely that's ever been a temptation. Let's lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let's lay wait for those that don't deserve to be mistreated. There are ways that we can do that without necessarily wielding knives, swords, and firearms. When we decide that we're going to use the majority to access the funds and unfairly take away the income of a minority, when we decide that we're going to take those that we recognize as the haves and make sure that they supply the wants of us, the have-nots. But we're going to do it instead of pulling a knife, we're going to pull a lever. We're going to do it with the way we vote. America constantly gives its citizens the choice of robbing others in order for them to be wealthy, or following after an economic pattern that's somewhat more reflective of a New Testament idea of giving to those that have need, not those that have want. What's our mindset? The book of Proverbs is going to hit regularly on the get-rich-quick idea. One of the get-rich-quick schemes that we have in the U.S., it really started growing a little bit from state to state, and now it's so prominent that you can find it everywhere. Anyone want to take a wild guess what that is? You can find it in almost every convenience store here in Tennessee. The lottery. What's the lottery? The lottery is my opportunity to get rich quick. It's the fool's tax, yes. Stupid taxes. The lottery is a collective pool where everyone that puts their money in it is hoping to get back more than they put in there. The lottery is voluntary theft. Here's my money, I want it back. But if somebody else gets it, I'm not going to be happy with it. Yeah, I'm wanting to do unto others what they want to do unto me here. I'm wanting to take the money they put into this pot. The get-rich-quick mindset. Now, think about what is said here in Proverbs 1:10 through 19. Cast in your lot among us. Let's all have one purse. We'll all work together. Oh, by the way, when people are willing to be conniving, secretive, manipulating, and sketchy, can you really trust them to have one purse? No honor among thieves. My son, walk not in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path. Their feet run to evil. They make haste to shed blood. Surely the net is in vain. The net is spread in the sight of any bird. They lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. Who are they really destroying? They're just tearing themselves apart. Let's come back to this idea of the lottery and gambling. 90% of those that win the lottery, within 1 year, guess what they've had to do? Declare bankruptcy. Now, when we talk about winning the lottery, we're talking about hitting it big. You know, bringing in those 6, 7, 8-figure payouts. And within a year, they've blown it. Why? What happens when you hand the keys of a car to someone who's 6 years old and has never had any sort of instruction? Does that person know how to handle it? What happens when you hand that sort of funds to a person who's never taken the time and done the sacrifice and done without and the planning in order to develop and accumulate that kind of wealth? Does that person know how to handle it? Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird. They lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone that's greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. Here is a description of the mindset that prioritizes wants over what's right and over the life of others. I want what I want, and I don't care what it costs others. I want what I want, and I don't care if it costs others what they've worked their lives to save. I want what I want, and I don't care if that means that this 75-year-old lady whose husband has just passed away, and now she's going to be taxed with the unrealized gains because her house is worth 5 times as much as it was when they built it, but it's paid off. What happens to her? Can she afford the house that's already paid off? No. Here's our point. There are a lot of principles in the book of Proverbs that will change your politics. There are a lot of principles in the book of Proverbs that will change your mindsets. And hopefully there are a lot of principles in the book of Proverbs that can help us look at others and be a bit more selfless and question, am I being selfish? Thank you for your time. We'll pick up here when we meet next week.